I'm going to show you a very simple card today. And this has quite a few layers, but it goes together simply. It's put out by Dreaming Tree, SVG, what is it called? I think it's 3dsvg.com. And they used a nice textured paper, and I'm just using plain white cardstock, but I still like the outcome of it. So I'm going to show you how to put this together. I cut it out on Cricut. There are 4 layers, and the easiest way to tell which layer to do next is how many holes there are, how many cuts. So we start at the base with the least amount of cuts, and then we go to the one next. And you can either use tape or glue. I would actually recommend a combination, because this little lattice work in the middle needs some attention without too much glue, but a little bit of glue. So I'm putting double-sided tape, just using Scotch tape today, double-sided Scotch tape, on my straight parts. I'm just using a tacky glue for a few more dots around. And then just a few little dots on the lattice work. Don't have to cover everything, just enough to adhere it so it doesn't move about. And if you want, and you see some blank spots, you can add more adhesive. Now I'm going to turn it over and line it up. And the trick of lining it up is recognizing they're both the same size. So I am lining up using the pineapples and the bottom edge. If you use glue, especially only glue, take a moment and bray it. But because I use Scotch tape, double-sided Scotch tape, I see a little piece of adhesive sticking out. So that's my first step. I took my blue and put it on my yellow. Now I'm doing the green. Do the same exact thing. And what's nice about this cut is it's unilateral. It's equal, so it doesn't matter which side you put on. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put tape in the corners. A little bit of hair. And then I'm going to add some liquid glue in the smaller areas. Just like before. You don't need a lot in the lattice, but you don't want it free floating. You don't want it to shift. There we go. I also see that I still have a little piece of adhesive out. Again, it's the same size, but if you want, you can just line up the bottom of the pineapple. Make sure it's straight. And if you have a brayer, just burnish it a little bit. I think I will make sure I have no glue on my table here. Just cutting off that little piece of adhesive that was sticking out and moving to my final layer, my white layer. Let's see. As I washed the glue off, I made this a little damp, so just make sure that's dry. Now I have my white layer. add some liquid glue to the smaller areas. There we go. I see one little dot of glue on top. I'm going to just touch that before I bray it so I don't spread the glue. I want to spread the glue underneath and make sure there's no air bubbles that I don't want on top. Here is the basic card. Now let's go to the basic card. I ended up using some patterned paper that I had, and it has a greenish blue center. It's actually kind of pretty, but you wouldn't be able to write a message on that. So we have an inside writing area. Does not have to be adhered so well. So I'm just going to use 5 pieces of tape. This could also be put on with a tape runner. And I'm just going to, well, in order to center it, I think I'm going to fold it inside out so I can see my edges, and I'm going to center it on the card, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And yes, go backwards here. And this is 5 1/4 by 4. That gives you a nice big area to add a note to your card. Now we're going to adhere this to the front, and I'm also going to center it. But I'm going to use, let's see, some puffy tape. And I'm going to put some in the corners. Now you can just adhere this flat. It doesn't have to have puffy tape, but I think it gives a good dimension. And I ended up using the same card base as my yellow in the pineapple. So this makes the yellow look a little bit different color. For me, that's good. I'm trying very hard to use up my stash to give me excuses to buy new paper. And when I find something that almost works, that's what gets used. Well, probably for me, the hardest part of this class, or this card, is removing the white little pieces from the adhesive, the two, oh, wrong one. Let's see, let's get one that has blade. This will work. So there's a paper covering on the foam tape. You want to remove that. And what you want enough tape, doesn't have to be a lot of the foam tape, but you want enough so it doesn't collapse. You have quite a few layers here of cardstock, so it shouldn't collapse too easily, but especially you want the center and sides supported. Okay, get rid of my trash. Now I'm just going to center it. I still see a little teeny piece of adhesive showing. There we go. Now we're going to put a sentiment on. Now in my sample sentiment, I put love, joy, happiness. Then it has an X and O. Well, I guess it's not too kosher to use a stamp that's not available anymore. So on today's, I'm going to use just a note. This is still available. It's just a small A-size stamp set, and it has a few sentiments to say hello. And what I'm using is to let you know I'm thinking of you, tell you thank you, to say I love you. Just a few sayings. And I made it ahead of time, but I am going to show you how I did it. We're going to be adhering it. I used a little sparkly paper there with rose gold. And I'm going to use a intense black, nice and easy. Because they're very little letters, you don't want to push hard when you stamp it. That's one of my problems. I tend to push too hard.